What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. No time to waste. Let's get right into it. You see the title. And I had to make this video, so it's going to be, I'll call it a rant, because I'm sick and tired of hearing some of the same ass things from some of the viewers. And now let's talk facts. Feel free to disagree with this video, but again, this is facts only. We're going to analyze some things. I'm going to give you my thought process. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. You think, oh, you just support Floyd Mayweather. Shut that shit up, man. It has nothing to do with Mayweather. I'm real. I speak from the heart, and I will tell you how it is. As far as Maidana and Mayweather 2, to me, is a fight that didn't happen. But again, if you go to my post-fight and stuff, I thought Mayweather won the first fight. And as a guy entering the twilight of his career, only a few fights left, I didn't want to see a Maidana fight because I thought if Maidana had a shot to beat Floyd, it would be in that first fight. So realistically, that's not even a fight I beckoned for, but I understood based on the quote-unquote public outcry. Now I'm getting people on my channel talking about Maidana is a cherry-pick fight, Floyd's a cherry-picker. And I'm talking about the current. I don't want to talk about other fights. He ducked Paul Williams and stuff. That's neither here nor there. Paul Williams is in a wheelchair, and it's unfortunate, you know what I'm saying? So we can't go back in time and change it. That's a fight clearly that can't happen now, is my point. I'm not trying to sound sympathetic. Paul Williams is unsympathetic. Paul Williams is my dude. But people are actually saying that the Chris Algieri fight is a good fight. This is a great fight. Yeah. Because Pacquiao struggles with the pure boxer. Yeah. And in the same breath, they have the nerve and audacity to say Maidana was a cherry pick fight. So let me backtrack and tell you how this all sparked. Recently, in an interview, Luis Carlos Abregu, he said that Pacquiao basically avoided him and took the safer option in Chris Algieri. He said it was too high of a risk and they chose the safer opponent. I have to agree with him, and I want to explore this with you guys. Again, if you disagree, intelligently explain why you disagree. If I say something that's not factual, call me out. Say, at 45 seconds, Ego, you said this. This is not true. This is facts only. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it. So the reason I agree, and that's the thing with me, some of you guys get up here and say, oh, Ego, you're a dick rider, you a bitch. Like, oh, cool. Prove me wrong. That's all I'm asking. Prove me wrong. Like I said, just like in politics, they have fact checkers, and that's why I'm recording my screen so you guys can see what I'm doing. They have fact checkers. So if I say something that's not factual, then feel free to interject. If you disagree, explain why. Don't say Mayweather's a bitch and he's a pussy if he doesn't fight Pacquiao, or Maidana's a bum. That's just opinion based. I'm giving you actual facts. So let's get into it. Now, the reason I agree with Luis Carlos Abregu is because he's a fighter from Argentina. If anything, the last decade, I guess you could say, in boxing has showed us these Argentines are tough. Sergio Martinez, even though he got mopped up by Cotto, he still hung in there as long as he could. We've seen him hurt in the Chavez Jr. fight, and he held on the 12th round. Lucas Matisse, another fighter, he was tough the whole Danny Garcia fight, even though his eye was lumped up and he was clearly losing. Marcos Maidana, tough. He got up from a vicious body shot placed by Amir Khan in the first round while Amir Khan was fresh and at his sharpest. Got back up, finished the fight, and he actually finished strong and had Khan hurt and backpedaling a bit. The list goes on. So Luis Carlos Abregu, I think he comes from that same cloth. Diego Chavez, he was banging it out with Keith Thurman. I mean, these Argentines, I'm not trying to stereotype any region or anything, but the ones that are at this level seem to be pretty tough. I think that's fair to say. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. So that's one thing. Plus, you really look at Chris Algieri. Yes, he can possibly outbox Manny Pacquiao. Now, I know some of you guys are thinking, no, that's Chris Algieri. He's slick. He's slick. True. Now let's look at Chris Algieri's stats. 30 years old. What is his height? Because that's what a lot. He's tall though. That's a lot of you guys are saying. He's 5'10". Now let's go over to Luis Carlos Abregu, and shout out to BoxRec for having all this information. Luis Carlos Abregu. What is his height? 5'10". What is his age? 30. So the motherfuckers are the same age, and they're the same height. Now let's jump back over to Chris Algieri. What is Chris Algieri's reach? 72 inches. What is Luis Carlos Abregu's reach? 72 inches. Now let's jump back to Algieri. Let's look. Okay, he has 20 wins, 8 KOs, and no losses, with a 40% KO ratio. Let's jump over to Abregu. 36 wins, 29 via KO, with 1 loss, and that was to Timothy Bradley. No draws, and he has nearly 80% knockout ratio. 78%, 78.38. Now, granted, if he was in Argentina and he was fighting some bums, then, you know what I mean, you can jog that number up pretty well. So let's look at resumes. We want to look at resumes. Go back to Algieri. Okay, Manny Pacquiao's at the top. He hasn't fought him yet. His best wins are against, or the names, I guess you could say, because when you get down here, you're not going to recognize any of these names. Plus, he was fighting in New York, where he's from, so he had kind of the crowd, hometown advantage. Look at how many fights you'll see from fucking New York. You know what I'm saying? He's fighting all through New York, and that's where he's from. Like, I think from his pro debut, pretty well, I think all of his fucking fights, now that I'm looking at all of his fights, are in New York, and that's where he's from. So it's cool. They built up their fighter, gave him some confidence. So the best names that I see on his resume, Chris Algieri, is Mike Arenadas. Click on Mike Arenadas. Okay. This is a guy with 25 wins, and he lost 10 times. And let's keep going. He had a tough fight. He gave Josecito Lopez a tough fight recently. Lost a unanimous decision to Chris Algieri. But look at some of these other losses. You'll see some names. Oh, Danny Swift Garcia. Knockout in the 4th round. He knocked him out. Delvin Rodriguez, who Miguel Cotto ran through, beat him. You know what I mean? At welterweight. Oh, this looks familiar. Vicious Victor Ortiz. TKO. Knocked him out. And the list goes on. He has multiple losses. And the way he lost to Chris Algieri wasn't better than Danny Garcia or Victor Ortiz, who actually stopped him. So that's one name. We'll click back. Go back to Chris Algieri's resume. So that's one big name that he has. Emmanuel Taylor. Now, Emmanuel Taylor's claim to fame was getting a Broner fight after destroying Kareem Mayfield off of a loss. Kareem Mayfield lost to Thomas Delorme, right? And Emmanuel Taylor beat that version of Kareem Mayfield. Follow me? So Emmanuel Taylor lost to Chris Algieri as well. And he lost to Broner and even got dropped in the 12th round. It was a good fight. It was a competitive fight. But he lost. So you click over to Emmanuel Taylor. What is his win? Like, what is his best win? Kareem Mayfield, who lost to Thomas Delorme. Now, let's go back a bit. Kareem Mayfield lost a decision, and he even dropped Emmanuel Taylor. You go to Abregu's page, and guess what? Abregu, where is it? Fought Thomas Delorme, just like Kareem Mayfield, but guess what? Abregu stopped him in 7 rounds and beat him, and he was the first to do it because Thomas Delorme, if you click on Thomas Delorme's, he was undefeated. So he was a hot Puerto Rican prodigy. You see the one loss. The one loss was based on the Abregu loss. He got hurt. He was down in the 3rd round, down in the 7th round, and they threw in the towel because their fighter Delorme was getting hurt. So when you really analyze the whole situation, how much better is Chris Algieri's resume than Abregu? You know what I'm saying? Abregu at least lost to Timothy Bradley. You know what I'm saying? Timothy Bradley is a world-class athlete. He lost and went the distance with Timothy Bradley. Plus, he has a higher KO percentage. And he has a good win over Thomas Delorme, an undefeated Thomas Delorme, versus Chris Algieri. Who's his best wins? His best win are against Ruslan Provodnikov, which was very hard fought, and he was getting hurt in the 1st round, I believe it was, and he held on. He showed tenacity, true grit, heart. I love everything about that. And he boxed better, but he didn't really seem to hurt Ruslan Provodnikov, whereas Timothy Bradley fought Ruslan, and it looked like he was actually hurting him a bit, you know what I'm saying, in the middle rounds. He looked, he was cutting his face and shit like that. So I'm really not understanding. Like, somebody help me understand how Pacquiao is not cherry picking by fighting Chris Algieri. He's 5'10", just like Abregu, who's 5'10". They have the same reach. They're the same age. And guess what? Abregu is tough and the motherfucker can crack. So that was a potential offer, a potential fight on the plate that Pacquiao chose the guy. And let's not forget, man, let's get right back to it. And I don't want to exclude this. Abregu has been fighting at 147 versus Chris Algieri has never fought over 140 pounds as a professional. So that's another difference. Pacquiao's fighting the guy with 8 knockouts or whatever and a lower KO percentage of 40% at a catch weight of 144, a weight he's never been to, versus Pacquiao being the welterweight champion. The welterweight champion, which is 147 pounds, is not fighting the actual guy who has been fighting at 147 with power. That's Luis Carlos Abregu. So I don't see it. I don't get it. And then on top of that, just the Mayweather has nothing to do with it as much. I'm just sick of hearing fans not know their boxing and try to spew shit that they don't really know what they're talking about. Then you look at Maidana, and Maidana, to me, has clearly done more as a professional, win, lose, or draw, than both of them. Marcos Maidana, age 31. Chris Algieri and Abregu are 1 year younger than Maidana. Maidana, high KO percentage, just like Abregu. He has a 78%. He fought Floyd Mayweather, the tough first fight, and then he clearly lost the second one. He's been in there with Josecito Lopez. He's been in there and destroyed Adrian Broner. He had won 4 fights in a row, 3 of them by knockout, and then the 4th was to Adrian Broner, which he damn near knocked out. He had Broner severely hurt before fighting Floyd Mayweather. Lost to Devin Alexander. He didn't have Robert Garcia training him, and he looked pretty shaky in that particular fight, but that's still a good, credible name. He had a tough fight, beat Eric Morales. He also fought Amir Khan. It was a very tough fight as well, and Amir Khan pulled it out based on what he did early in the fight, but he really had Khan hurt towards the end. Maidana's fought DeMarcus Corley, who, he's a name in the sport. He has a ton of losses as well, but he's still a name. He had a tough fight with Victor Ortiz where he battled adversity, got knocked down 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, got the fuck back up, made Victor Ortiz quit when Victor Ortiz was an up-and-coming prodigy, and he was the next golden boy, the next De La Hoya. They were really putting a lot of stock into Victor Ortiz, and then Maidana TKO'd him. You had Kotelnik, which he lost a narrow margin, a split decision. So it's like there's no competition. Again, if you guys want to say Mayweather's cherry picking and not bring up the fact of what I'm talking about in this video with Pacquiao, it makes no sense. Maidana, win, lose, or draw, is still a tougher outing at welterweight than a guy like Chris Algieri, who can, let's not be mistaken, he can beat Pacquiao, but he can only beat Pacquiao one way. And that's to outbox him and to do it convincingly. And the thing that's going to make it hard is Pacquiao has a chin, and to outbox Pacquiao, you have to be skilled. On top of that, everything else is stacked against Chris Algieri. He doesn't have like one punch, I'll turn the fight around type of power. So I don't really see him hurting Pacquiao. He's fighting in a pro-Asian crowd away from home. Pacquiao's fighting in the Philippines and training in the Philippines, so he's going to be a little bit more acclimated to that time difference, fighting in Macau, China from the Philippines versus fighting and training in the East Coast and New York and the States, and then traveling 2-3 weeks before your fight. And he doesn't have that power. Luis Carlos Abregu has power to really hurt anybody at welterweight if he connects good, you know what I'm saying? Or at least make them respect his power, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just not getting it. Chris Algieri, oh, he's tall. So is Luis Carlos Abregu. They're the same height, they're the same age, and arguably, I just told you in this video, Abregu has a better resume than Chris Algieri. And I have no problem with Chris Algieri. I like him. He's sharp. He showed, like I said, that determination, that willingness to win by battling the Ruslan Provodnikov. But you look at both fighters' biggest wins. Abregu's biggest win, let's say, is Thomas Delorme. Now, that was an undefeated hotshot Puerto Rican prospect that was undefeated, and you stopped him. Chris Algieri's biggest win is against Ruslan Provodnikov. And you I'm not gonna say you barely won it, but you struggled to win it. You didn't stop him, and we know Ruslan's tough. So it's not about just stopping people, but a lot of people thought Ruslan still won. Freddie Roach, myself, when I did my initial post-fight video, I was like, damn, I gave it to Ruslan. And then I rewatched it, and I'm like, okay, I could see it. Ruslan wasn't, he was looking for the one-punch knockout. He wasn't as busy as Algieri. So miss me with that bullshit. If you guys have a honest rebuttal to dispute anything that I'm saying, feel free to leave it. Let me know how I'm wrong, how Luis Carlos Abregu is wrong, and Pacquiao didn't avoid the more serious threat. And Abregu can box. He can box. He's not just a banger, like he's just going to bang your lights out and stuff like that. And he's the true welterweight versus Chris Algieri is not a true welterweight. You know what I'm saying? And you got a guy defending his welterweight crown at 144 at a catchweight. So let me know if Maidana, according to some of you guys, Maidana is the biggest cherry pick ever for Floyd fighting him twice, even though he's dangerous and he has also the power to hurt anyone at welterweight if he connects right. And that's a cherry pick fight. But Manny Pacquiao, Chris Algieri is just the greatest fight ever. Please explain this to me. Help me understand it. Dispute it. Use facts and let me know how I'm wrong or in the wrong. Make sure you like my video. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.